Hey there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Today I'm doing a job that needs to get done here in the northern climates, and that is getting my summer flowering bulbs and corms and things all cleaned up and stored for the winter. Now I have very much more in-depth videos on how to do individual types of bulbs and corms. So you could just search like Prairie Plant Girl storing begonia tubers, Prairie Plant Girl storing winter storage of Cannas, winter storage of Dahlias, Acidanthera, all those things, and you'll find a more in-depth video. But today I'm just going to be getting them cleaned up. So I have 4 pots that have dahlias in them still, so I'm just going to be pulling them out of their pots, breaking them out of the soil here, and then I'll be going in the greenhouse where I have all my storing stuff sitting and waiting and getting them put away. There's also some crocosmia corms in some of these, so when I come across those, I'll be putting them away as well. So nice dahlia tuber there. It's been getting quite cold at night. Hopefully these are all still in good shape. This one feels nice and firm still. Been a little bit slow getting this done, but I did go through a while ago, and any that I kind of had an idea of what color they were or something like that, I wrote it on the stems. A lot of these were just purchased in a mixed pack. I didn't save my dahlias over the winter last year. Just felt like I needed a break from dealing with all of that. But thought I was going to take a break from dahlias entirely, but you know, I just couldn't resist them when I saw them in the packages this spring, and so I picked some ball dahlias up, which I love ball dahlias. So they turned out really nice. I thought I would put them away and save them again and have them for next year. It's actually quite easy to store them. Look at that Dusty Miller. I grew that from seed. Isn't that beautiful? They stand up to the frost so well, you can't even tell we've had a hard frost. See the roots swirling around this pot? You gotta be careful when you're digging out your dahlias. I just broke this piece of tuber off, and now it's missing parts that we need, so this won't grow next year. It's just gonna have to go compost. Just trying to find where the main plant is here. So many roots in this pot. Some people wash their dahlia tubers off. I just get the as much of the loose soil off as I can. So that's all I'm working on here, is just loosening the soil. And that's one big dahlia clump. And see if I can find, did I write on this one? Well, I went around with a Sharpie and wrote on all these, but I'm not seeing it now, or most of them. Oh, there it is. So it's up higher. So I went through, because they're just a mixed bag of ball dahlias, so I just wrote kind of color. My bucket's pretty full from doing those dahlias, but I'd like to try and get this canna out if I can. These are always tricky because they grow so much over the season. Just getting them in these, out of these pots can be really difficult. So this is going to take me a bit. I'm just going to slowly dig down the sides and get as much soil and roots removed as I can, and then take the canna out. This started as just like a small pot, and it will have mostly filled this container. You have to be careful with cannas that you don't have them grow so much that they break your container on you over the season, because their roots really do grow quite a bit and they're quite strong. I don't know if you can see, there's more canna coming up at this corner here. There's a little bit of green. That's canna coming up a root just under this little tiny lip of this pot. And it's expanded out right under to there. Usually if you can put it in a pot that's tapered smaller at the bottom, that'll help you if you can get the top part out. So there, pot's empty. And you can see just how much these roots have filled in that pot. This is part of the tuber or corm from the rhizome, I guess it is, from the canna. There's more here pushed out. So it was pushing right up against the side of the pot. It doesn't need these roots anymore, so I'm just gonna pull these off and try and get as much soil off of this as I can. It's very happy here. You can see it was trying, and all you can see that it was trying to grow out the drain hole. It's a vigorous canna for sure. This was a beautiful yellow canna that I picked up at the garden center this summer. Cannas are quite tough, so it might look like I'm being quite harsh with this, but it'll be fine. I can't even find the old piece in here. So I'm just sticking my fingers in and trying to just pull off any just the stringy roots and the soil that's around it, and leave these until I can get them pulled apart. This feels like it's not really attached much here. So there, we can do the rest of that in the greenhouse and we get ready to put it away for winter. Just to give you a really quick look at what I do here. So these are labeled on this label here, orange dreamsicle dahlia, and then you can go around. I dug these up the other day. They were in my house, so you could go and label them. I might have already done this. No. So you can write right on the tuber if you like. I find it a little bit tricky. You can write right on the tuber. I don't know. I find it kind of if the tubers aren't perfectly hardened off, it doesn't work as well. Like I said, these are in my house, and this one actually wanted to sprout a little bit again, but that's fine. That'll die off in storage. So then I would just take these. This is all the orange dreamsicle. I have my bucket here, and I'm just going to dig a little hole back. Actually, first I want to moisten this. So I will moisten this down so that it's damp but not wet, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to stir it around a lot. So it'll kind of take on like a coolness to it, this vermiculite. And I reuse my vermiculite as long as there hasn't been a lot of disease or anything in there, no pests. Vermiculite can be a little bit expensive to purchase. It's safe to use. Some people are concerned about asbestos because there used to be vermiculite that had asbestos in it. That was from a specific part of the world, and it's no longer mined there. So it's safe to use. Just, it is dusty, so you don't want to get the dust breathing it in, but there's no asbestos. So just get it nice and damp. So hopefully you can see it changes color. It's darker, but it's not like I'm not going to be able to squeeze liquid out of it, but it'll kind of clump together when it's moist. Okay, so it kind of clumps together, but not entirely, you know, like it easily breaks up again. And that's what you're looking for. There. So then just pull some back. And I'm just going to set my tubers in, and I'm going to try and keep a little bit of space between them. So they're fairly close, but they're not touching, and that's all you want. So I just put a very thin layer there, put a few more in, and yeah, these are probably touching because they're connected, but like I said, I don't divide them. You want to keep them, if you keep them in big clumps, then it'll be easier in the spring to see, because you need the actual tuber part, and then there's like a little neck on it, so where it gets narrower, and then up here there's growth points, and they could be up here and they could be down lower, and it's harder to see them this time of year. Like this would have been a growth point right here, just barely above. There's the neck right there, and just barely above it there was a growth point coming. So you want to, it's kind of hard to tell where they are, I find anyways. And it's easier to divide them up in the spring. Now these I did cut into large clumps. Well, this is a small clump. This is just one. This will grow a plant. And as you're storing them away, just check. Like I'm giving it a little squeeze. Is it firm? Is it dried out? Is it mushy? Because it's not worth storing if it's mushy or super dried out already. And then I have my tag here. And I'll just set that on that group. And I know that's the orange dreamsicle there. If you don't want to mix them up by color or variety, then you could put different things in the buckets. So here I have a canna. I'll stick that in. And you see how the canna had been frosted and dyed back. So the canna is a little easier. If you want to divide it, you can this time of year. Again, I find just storing things in big clumps just helps regulate the moisture levels in them a little better. You know, if one area is drying out, maybe it'll draw some moisture from another area that's a little damper. But like I said, you can go through, take off all these little roots, clean it up. And then if you wanted to divide your cannas, like maybe you want to give some to a friend or something, or if you want to experiment in storing them in different ways, then it's very easy. Just go through like these little pointy parts on these rhizomes. It's just a tiny little point. Different areas like that is where you're going to get your sprouts coming from. You see how this one was pointed up and then it had grown a shoot out of there. This one would do the same thing. So you could just come cut it off and you'd have two shoots coming out of there. And then you just want to let that kind of dry off for a few hours to a day so it kind of scabs over. And then you could store it away just the same as you would. Now I want to cut these big stem chunks back a little bit more because they hold a lot of moisture and it can be too much in the storage. So I like to get these stems cut back quite a bit. And like I said, I don't wash them. You could wash them, but I just get as much of the soil off as I can. Make sure there's no bugs or anything living in there. Okay, and then you do the same thing. And you could just take it and set it in your vermiculite. Now these can be a little trickier to get set down in a way that they're covered. Move this around a bit more. So set it down, and then you could just bring, and I have another bag of vermiculite that I can put on top, and then I'll just have my one variety of Dahlia and my Canna in here. They're not touching each other, and I need to get a tag for this because I didn't have a tag in the pot, and just label it as yellow Canna, and like I said, just get it covered up with the vermiculite that's damp. And then they'll just go in my cool, dark space for the winter. These tags like this, I like to use these. They have a little hole in the end. So if you wanted to, if you had a lot of varieties all together, you could take a little piece of wire and wrap it around your Canna or your Dahlia. And then it's firmly attached. Just make sure it's tied on fairly tight so when these do shrink down a little bit, the wire can't fall off. Now my begonias are put away, but I could just set a couple of begonias. I find even just setting them down on this moist medium and just putting the cover over them is enough for the begonias. They don't need to be right fully into the buried into the vermiculite to do well for storage. And then your plants like your ranunculus, anemones, gladiolus, acidanthera, crocosmia, they're even easier. So you just need some mesh bags or a paper bag, and then you're just going to take them. You can trim off these excess roots if you like. Not entirely needed, again, like I said before, I just like how it neatens it up and less things to rot, but with these especially, they're not even going to be really getting rotten. They're going to be drying out. Now if the stem pulls off, you can just pull it off or just cut it off. Again, remove the dirt. There's the old corm down there. I don't know how you can see, kind of looks like a clump of dirt there. Now you could take it off or you can leave it. It's holding all the new babies. That's what all this is little babies. And then you just take your mesh bag, put them in. I like to throw my labels in, then I have some for when I'm planting. And then I'll fill this bag up and I'll just hang it again in the same dark, cool place that the rest is stored in. They don't need anything else. And that's the same, like I said, for the acidanthera, crocosmia, ranunculus, anemones. Did I get them all? I think so. All these kind of, corm kind of things. So like I mentioned before, I have much more in-depth videos on how to put these corms, tubers, bulbs away for the winter. This is something you don't need to do necessarily in your climate. So this is something for more northern gardeners where the ground is freezing down to a good depth for a long period of time. So I'd say in a generalization, it's going to be probably like zone 6 and lower that you're going to need to dig up these summer flowering plants and store them away. I put away, I think I already said this, but like my begonias, my acidanthera, my crocosmia, my ranunculus, anemones, dahlias, cannas. I think that covers it all. You might not need to. You might be able to just mound up compost or leaves or something over top. If you're in a really wet climate, a lot of these plants don't want to be sitting in really wet, soggy soil that's cold, so you might need to maybe put down a tarp or something over top. But I'm certainly not the person to go to for how to deal with things in those climates, because mine all have to come out of the ground or they will freeze, turn to mush, and they will not grow the next year. I need to be lifting them and putting them away indoors in a cool space. You want to keep them between about 5 to 10 degrees Celsius is ideal. And they need to be like in a slightly dampish kind of medium is preferable for most of them. There are some exceptions. The smaller corms, like the crocosmia acidanthera, the ranunculus, and the anemone can all just be stored completely dry. I find even begonias don't need to be quite as damp, kept as damp and moist. It's not as big of a deal for them as the dahlias and the cannas. Dahlias are the most fussy. They can be stored. It's not super difficult, but if you don't have good conditions, you will probably lose a few tubers. So don't count on all of your tubers. Keep an eye on all these roots over the winter months while they're in storage. Have a look at them once a month or so. Pull them out and just check for rot and things, and just make sure that they're all still good. That's the best way to keep it from having everything get rotten, is to keep an eye on them and pull out anything that looks suspicious. And I put them in containers. You can put them in paper box, like cardboard boxes, plastic buckets. You can have them in a breathable bucket like this that's just lined with like burlap, or I have what are they called, like flour sack towels. And it's really going to depend on how much humidity is in your area and your storage space to what's ideal for storing them, and also what medium you use. Like I use vermiculite to store mine. I really like it. I like how it holds moisture, but it doesn't stay like wet, if that makes sense. Some people find that paper shavings or like cedar shavings work really well for them. So it's just, you have to kind of experiment with your area, the temperatures, and mainly the humidity that you have in your area, and see what works for you. So if you tried it one year and you stored them one way, maybe they all dried out. So maybe you need a medium that holds more moisture in your space, or maybe they all went really wet and mushy. So was it that you had too much moisture in that storage medium, or was it that storage medium just holds the moisture close to the surface and was too much for those roots? So you have to play with it a little bit. You know, a cardboard box is going to breathe more than a plastic container. If you have them in a plastic container, it does still need to have like some holes in it. You know, a lot of them have, if it's like a Rubbermaid or something, they'll have like under the handles where air can kind of still move through a little bit. So you need to have a little bit of air circulation through, or leave the lid off. I'm going to be spending probably a few hours working on this, and then they'll be getting stored away in a space that we are fortunate enough to have, where the heat is kept really low. It's insulated. It's just under the stairs, kind of away from all the heating elements and that. And it's in the dark. So that's what I'm going to be doing with mine. It's down on concrete, which tends to have, I find, just a little bit more moisture down in a basement on some concrete. A little more humidity in that space than other spaces here in Saskatchewan. So I'll try and remember to get some pics. It won't look like much of the finished product here. This is just more of a reminder that if you haven't done this yet, it's time to get those things pulled up, put away. Once the frost has taken them, once you're getting into hard frost territory and more cold days and like freezing nights very consistently, you need to get these things pulled up, or they'll get too cold in their ground or container area, freeze, and you will lose your chance to save them. So get out there, get your corms, bulbs, tubers, put away, saved, covered, mulched, whatever it is you need to do in your area, and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.